Hello bellezas, and welcome back to another video, or if you are new here then just welcome. Hi, my name is Brenda. I do paranormal videos here on my channel, so if that is something that you are interested in, please consider subscribing down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss when I post another video like this one. Now with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Alright, hello everybody and happy Friday. Welcome back to another video. I hope that you are excited for today's video based on the title, which you can see we are going to be talking about Nahuales. I think that is how you pronounce it. I watched a couple of videos on it and I was like, hopefully I say it right and people don't get mad that I'm saying it wrong the entire time. So fingers crossed. Nahuales, I'm just saying it how it's spelled. But anyway, if you have never heard of Nahuales, I'm going to explain a little bit about what I know just based on what I searched up, because there was quite a bit of different things that I found which talked about Nahuales, and they all had kind of a different perspective as to what they were, because this is a Mesoamerican folktale of some sort, or like mythical creature of some sort, and the different areas just based off of like who's telling the folk tale, it can range differently, and they all kind of have their own idea of what it is. So I'm just gonna give you the gist of it. Hopefully that explains what they are. It's very straightforward for the most part. Okay, so basically a Nahual is very similar to a skinwalker or a shapeshifter, if you have ever heard those folklore in the Native American tribes along all of America. They all have some sort of skinwalker folktale or myth that has to do with them, but the Nahual is very similar. So it is said to be some kind of witch or shaman who can shapeshift into an animal, and they can do it in various different ways depending, as I said, on who is telling the story about it. But usually they can shapeshift just because it's said that everybody is born with some sort of animal being like spiritually, and some people can tap into that and then transform into an animal just based off of that. And then some say that it is learned through some kind of magic, and it can always be used like with anything towards evil or good. Some people do it just for their advantage, to use the different instincts that animals have, like the sight of a falcon or the ability to run as fast as a wolf or a dog or anything like that, in order to help other people. Like let's say somebody needed help from a town over, and like a medic or something, and somebody who can shapeshift into a Nahual would be able to turn into a wolf or something and then run all the way to the other town and then shapeshift back and get somebody to help somebody in their community. And it can also be used for bad, as I said, just like they say with skinwalkers. You know, if you give somebody too much power and they abuse it, obviously their spirit gets tainted and they turn into bad people, and then they start doing bad things, terrorizing the people in town. And so this has been something that has been believed by in a lot of different areas in Mexico, and it's very interesting that to this day people believe in it, but it's kind of changed as to what a Nahual is for people, and whether it's something that is comforting for them to know that they have somebody in their community that can turn into a Nahual, or if it's something sinister that they would rather not have in their town, and how they choose to react to having somebody who they believe is a Nahual in their community. Because sometimes when it comes to myths like this, it can end up being something that goes wrong, because sometimes people can't just live with the fact that these myths exist. Sometimes they take it too far and they really think that this is something that is happening in their community, so they end up doing something crazy. Like they'll end up using that excuse to accuse somebody of being a Nahual and then have them taken out of their town for that reason. Or they also accuse regular animals of being a Nahual and then killing them. Like with lechuzas, which you guys are aware of too. A lot of people believe that they are witches that turn into lechuzas, and then there's been lots of videos of people like killing lechuzas and torturing them, trying to get them to talk or trying to get them to transform back into a person, like whoever the witch may be. So that is one of the bad things that comes out of these folk tales, is that people take it to greater lengths and they don't know where to draw a line between like something fictional and somebody's real life. So yeah, that is just one of the things I wanted to mention before getting into this topic, because as I said, these are all just tales that have been told for thousands of years, and they're just part of history, and they're just something interesting to look into and not something to take to that length. You know, it's not something to mess around with either, because there could be real life people's lives at stake whenever people's imaginations get a little bit too ahead of themselves. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it was, because when I was listening to some of these videos about what Nahuales are, there's various different legends behind them and different things, and they've been adapted as time goes on, especially because the Nahuales and like the tale itself that has been passed down, a lot of it has been either drawn out or written in a language that we can't understand, and then so we kind of just depict it based off of images and kind of create our own idea of what people back then were trying to portray. And so a lot of it probably gets lost and a lot of it gets translated wrong. So basically just see it kind of the same way that the Native American tribes see skinwalkers. It's like one of those things where it's just part of their culture and something that they have been passed down generation after generation and have been told within each other. But there's like no way to prove that this is something that actually is real. It's just one of those things that gets passed down and gets told like with families. Everybody has a story like this in their family. So today I am going to be reading somebody's account of Nahuales passed down in their own family. And I always love these kinds of stories. Feels a little bit more personal and more valid, because a lot of times like it doesn't make sense to make up any of these things. It's just kind of one of those things where you just tell it within your family and you don't really care whether anyone's gonna believe you or not, which makes it a little bit more substantial. Because a lot of the stuff that my mom has told me, like a lot of her stories, I always feel like those are easier to believe and they're less dramatized, and which makes it even scarier, because now you know that something like this is possibly out there and you just never know. But all you have is just these stories that get told within the family. So this one is from an article called Sighted at the Crossroads on the Chicano Chicana Gothic, which is I guess like a little news article, and this was posted in 2014 by somebody named Dulce, and it's titled The Legend of Nahuales in Tuzatlan, and this is part 1. And I'm gonna just basically read it off of here, and then we can discuss it a little bit at the end. Alright, so it says, sitting down at the kitchen table while eating dinner, my parents always had stories to share about their childhood. Both of my parents were born in a small pueblo in Puebla, Mexico, named Tuzatlan. One of the stories that always scared me was the one about Nahuales. I didn't recall much about the Nahual stories because as a child I was scared. Recently, I asked my parents to sit down with me and tell me all that they remember. I'm going to start with my father's version. He focused more on the good side of Nahuales. Although legends like La Llorona were heard in Tuzatlan, the legend of Nahuales was the legend that people talked about the most in that town. My father enjoyed talking to the elders in his pueblo. He specifically remembers an old man by the name of Atilano telling him about Nahuales. My dad was about 10 years old when he first heard about Nahuales, and according to my father, Nahuales are supernatural people or brujos with tremendous amount of powers. At night, and only during the nighttime, these people have the ability to transform into an animal. Animals such as dogs, snakes, cats, and many others. These beings were even more powerful in animal form. They have the option of choosing whether to use their powers for good or evil, just like in anything else, right? It was easy to spot which people in this pueblito were Nahuales because these persons liked wandering at night. Atilano knew that one of his neighbors was a Nahual. He thought this because a dog would walk out the front door, and Atilano never saw his neighbor leaving his house yet. Hours after the dog had left, his neighbor would be the one walking through the front door. He witnessed this multiple times. My papa and other people in Tuzatlan believed that his grandfather, Luz Ruiz, was a Nahual. My great-grandfather loved walking at night, and no one could understand why. No one knew his whereabouts or what he did at night. It was all very mysterious. When Luz had to travel to nearby pueblos, he would leave at nighttime. This was very strange because everybody who had to travel to distant places would do so during the day. This was another reason for people to believe Luz was a Nahual. My dad believes that if his grandfather was a Nahual, he used his powers for good. My parents also believe that my grandfather, my dad's father, is a Nahual. However, they believe that he uses his powers for evil. My dad is almost certain that his father is a Nahual because he says that his father has always liked walking at night. He had no business to take care of out there, but still he wandered off. My father found this very strange because as a child and even as a teenager, he was scared to walk around the pueblo late at night. My parents would not specify why they believe my grandfather is a Nahual, and my mother concluded by saying that every time he was upset with them, something bad would happen at night. They recall seeing a snake every time one of these events happened. And then she's continuing the rest of this on part 2, which I'm going to get into right now too. Alright, so this is the second part. As I asked my mom to tell me what she had witnessed, I noticed that it was difficult for her to start talking. My mom explained to me that in her opinion, Nahuales are evil. She believes this because a Nahual used her powers to cause physical and emotional pain to my grandmother. Before giving birth to my aunts, mother, and uncle, my grandmother, Balbina, had 4 failed pregnancies. I have translated what my mom said to me in regards to the Nahuales. And she says, quote, "Every time my mama was pregnant, she suffered. Whenever she was about to give birth, she said she saw a black dog with red eyes at nighttime. She lost 4 children. They died before she could even give birth to them. My mom was always sick. It was strange because her stomach would get purple, then black. She would get really depressed. My father took my mother to a curandera because many people advised them to go with her. Her name was Octavina. Octavina assured my parents that she would heal my mama since the first time she saw them. But she was not a bruja, she was a curandera. My mom used to tell me that Octavina gave her liquid herbal medicine, but she did not know exactly what was in them, and she prayed a lot. She had Catholic saints in her home, and she prayed a lot for my mom. She had an altar, and she performed a limpia, cleansing. This curandera told my mom that it was an evil Nahual causing her suffering. Octavina said that the Nahual was a woman who was in love with my father. Her name is Agueda Mejia. This lady wanted revenge because my dad ended up marrying my mother instead of her. She used her powers for evil. She was the black dog that my mother would see at night, but Octavina healed her. Thanks to Octavina, my mother was able to give birth to me, your aunts, and uncle. She healed my mom. If it wasn't for Octavina, we wouldn't be here. After all of this, Carla, my sister, was born. Because of that woman Nahual, my mom suffered a lot. She was just jealous. It's a shame. As my mom was telling me my grandma's story and about Octavina, the curandera, I remembered Ultima. When Antonio's uncle Lucas was very sick, Ultima was their only hope. Octavina was my grandmother's only hope. Octavina and Ultima's healing methods were very similar, although the church did not approve either Ultima's or Octavina's methods. The Mares family and the Torres Garcia, my mother's family, were very thankful to the curandera. Okay, I really enjoyed those stories because there's like a lot of things going on all together. It's like they're religious and then they also see the curandera, which is very common. I don't know if she's Mexican, I'm guessing because she's Chicana, it said on the article, but there's always like a crossover because even my mom has gone to a curandera and I grew up Catholic. And of course, as she said, the curandera, she's like a healer, she's not a witch, because most people get that mixed up. They're like, oh, it's weird that somebody who is religious and like Catholic would go to somebody like a curandera because they kind of see them as somebody who does witchcraft, but they really just do things that are like based on herbal medicine and herbal cures for things, and they don't practice anything other than that. They do pray for people and they are still on the religious side of things. I don't really know much about curanderas, but they can always give you something to hold on to that will ward off these evil spirits or these evil people that are trying to do you harm. And you know, they have a bunch of different things that they believe in that are still tied into herbal side of things, as well as just like natural and mythical things that they believe in. And the fact that she was able to figure it out as well, like what was the root cause of her getting sick and of her losing her first 4 children. Very tragic that any of this happened, but I can see why the author's mom would lean more to the fact that Nahuales are evil, because I feel like when you have that kind of power and then something goes wrong, like somebody wrongs you or something like that, you can easily end up using those powers for evil. Just like in this situation with this Nahual, it was like her anger and jealousy of not being able to get the person that she was in love with, which was the author's dad, and having this be the outcome of it. Crazy. I really enjoyed this whole thing though, because it kind of gives you a different perspective on what Nahuales in modern time, I guess, are causing, because I feel like maybe back then they were off, you know, somewhere in the middle of the woods doing their own thing and they weren't really giving anybody problems, but they were being spotted by regular people, and then those regular people started talking about it, and then it started spreading, and then people were writing about it or documenting it and being like, what are these things, you know, and then finding out more about it later whenever they cross paths with these Nahuales and learned more about what they were doing out there. And I'm pretty sure there's always going to be both sides of things. They can either have a good experience or a bad experience with them, but either way, really interesting and just crazy for this to be something that could possibly exist. Just like with skinwalkers, it's just very intriguing. That's why I wanted to cover a couple of these stories on here and show the fact that, as I said, good and evil exists in everybody, and it's ultimately your choice as to what you go with and what you choose to do, even as a regular person, right? And yeah, that's basically it, you guys. I just wanted to kind of cover a little bit of this and see if this is something that you guys are interested. Like if you would like me to find some more stories about Nahuales and people's experience with them, because there are not very many. I was looking online for a while, just searched up like stories, Nahual stories, and most of them are in books, like actual books that were written and you have to like buy online or like get from the library. So I feel like most people don't have stories like in modern day, because mythical creatures or these folk tales were told like a long time ago. And with how modern day society is like full of technology and all of that, maybe it has caused Nahuales and skinwalkers to stray away from making interactions with modern day society and have found it easier to hide away and lurk in the night, in the shadows of the nightfall, you know what I mean? So maybe that's why there's not as many people with experiences, and then you have to go and ask your elders for stories about stuff like this. Like for this article, they had to ask their parents, and their parents have stories about their parents and their grandfathers and so on and so forth. Like it goes back a long time ago, especially in these little towns in Mexico. That's the main way that you would probably find these kinds of stories or these kinds of encounters. So I could do a little bit more digging and see if I can find any other story, maybe on Reddit or something, that somebody else has from somebody in their family, because that tends to be the easiest way for me to find stories, is whenever somebody shares their family stories, as I said already. But I hope that you enjoyed these, as I said, and let me know if you want more of these, or if there's any other topic that you would like me to cover, because I feel like I run out of things and I'm like, oh crap, I'm gonna be gone for another month because I don't know what to talk about for the next video. But thank you guys so much for watching. Before I do end today's video, I do want to give my comment shout out for today, and it goes to this person right here. Thank you so much for leaving a nice comment. I really do appreciate it, and it truly makes my day. And if you want to be the next comment shout out, all you have to do is leave me a nice comment down below. And that's it. I'm sorry if I was all over the place with this video, guys. I feel like I'm so out of practice with filming, and my anxiety was like off the charts today for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I had coffee without anything else, not even like that much water. So I was just like so jittery, and like my thoughts were all jumbled up, and I kept losing my train of thought. I was just like, oh my god, this was stressing me out. Even reading off of this, I was just like, I had one thought coming in, and then I would go away, and I was like, what was I talking about? What am I trying to say? So yeah, hopefully the next video I will be a little bit more put together. I say that every time, but every time as soon as I sit in front of the camera, it's like deer under headlights, and I haven't gotten used to it. But thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end, you guys. I truly appreciate it. And if you did make it all the way to this point in the video, make sure to leave a little dog emoji. That way I know who stayed this far in, and I really appreciate you. Me and you are besties as always. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to stay safe and be kind. Bye bye.